Mom notices her daughter's coffin fogging up, looks closer and gets shocked. You often hear stories about people returning from the dead, but they are often dismissed as folktales. However, one incident that occurred within the family of a 3-year-old girl encapsulated all their nightmares in one. Mary Jane Mendoza and her husband Juan Jose Martinez lived a quiet and happy life in Villa de Ramos, a small town about an hour from Mexico City, with their only 3-year-old daughter Camila Roxana. The couple owned a small restaurant in the center of town. Nothing ostentatious, but it was a good job with which they could get by and not worry about anything. The family, as is often the case when you own a restaurant in a very small neighborhood community, were well liked by everyone. There was no one without a good word for the Martinez Mendozas. They were a kind and good-hearted family whose only concern was to take care of their little Camila and make sure she had a full and happy life. A wish that unfortunately would never come true. And this humble family would have to face a real nightmare in which their little Camila would end up being the most harmed, becoming an innocent victim and leaving her parents and all those who knew her with a totally broken heart. It all started when little Camila Roxana Martinez Mendoza, 3 years old, began to feel a severe stomachache, accompanied by frequent vomiting and high fever. At first, her parents didn't want to give it much importance since it's very common for children to suffer episodes of intestinal flu, especially during the summer when temperatures are higher and the body tends to dehydrate easily. They went to their neighborhood pharmacy and tried to calm her symptoms with medication and a light diet. However, none of that worked, and the day after she started feeling sick, little Camila got drastically worse to the point where she was unable to get out of bed and was on the verge of fainting because of the high fever she was suffering from. This seriously worried her mother, Mary Jane Mendoza, who decided to seek professional medical attention for her little girl to put an end to her pain and find out what was really happening to her. "The girl has something serious, Juan Jose, I can feel it. We must take her to the doctor as soon as possible or to the nearest hospital. Our baby is in a very bad way and I'm worried about her life. I've never seen her this state before," Mary Jane said to her husband when she saw that her daughter was not getting better and her fever was increasing. "Don't worry, Mary. We'll take her to a doctor right away for an examination. I'm sure it's just a virus that needs stronger medication and nothing more. They'll be able to help us cure our little girl. Don't be afraid," her husband told her, trying to reassure her and take away the seriousness of the matter. However, the matter was more serious than they could have imagined, and when the couple took their daughter to the pediatrician in Villa de Ramos, their hometown, the local doctor was very alarmed to see the girl's condition and the severe symptoms she was showing. Such was his concern that only 10 minutes after examining her, he told them they should take their daughter to a hospital because the case was too advanced and needed more expert medical attention and help. The couple was very frightened, and after putting their daughter back in the car, they sped her to the nearest hospital in El San Luis Potosí in the central state of Mexico. They went to the Hospital Básico Comunitario de Salinas de Hidalgo, where she was admitted urgently for what appeared to be a severe case of dehydration. The hospital doctors placed a cold towel on her lower body to lower her temperature and an oximeter to monitor her oxygen levels, but did not perform any additional tests or analyses to determine the cause of Camila's symptoms. The next morning, after finding that the fever had subsided and Camila had stopped vomiting, the doctors discharged her and prescribed paracetamol, nothing more. Mrs. Mendoza was not convinced of that decision nor the treatment her daughter had received at the hospital, so before leaving she tried to get the doctors to re-examine her daughter, but she was unsuccessful. "Why is she being sent home so quickly? The first doctor who examined her told us that my daughter needed specialized medical treatment, and you just gave her cold compresses and a fever pill, something we and any doctor in the province could do. Please, can't you examine her one more day and determine the source of her discomfort?" Mrs. Mendoza asked the doctor who treated her daughter. In her voice, you could hear the fear she felt about taking her daughter out of the hospital so soon. "There's nothing more we can do for your little girl here. She's responded well to the treatment we've carried out and therefore we're sending her home. That is the protocol. I'm sorry, ma'am," the doctor said dryly and curtly as he signed her out and left them alone in the room. After that, the couple took the girl back home, but as they feared, her condition worsened severely in the following hours, prompting the family to seek a second opinion at another doctor's office. The next doctor advised a fruit-based diet and prescribed another medication. This did not convince them either and did not make the girl feel better, quite the contrary. The next day, when none of the treatments they'd recommended helped, they sought out another doctor who advised them to hospitalize the girl immediately. That led her to being admitted again to the Salinas Hospital between 9 and 10 p.m., where doctors and medical support staff worked to stabilize her condition, which had worsened since the last time she'd been there. Seeing that nothing could stabilize the girl, they tried to administer intravenous therapy to try to speed up her recovery process, a treatment that should have been done 2 days earlier but arrived too late. Putting her on the IV was not easy since Camila had very small arms and her veins were barely noticeable under the skin. In the end, luckily, a nurse managed to do it, and it seemed that for a few moments her vital signs were recovering, but this wasn't the case. After an hour, the nurses removed her intravenous strip and took little Camilla to rest in another room. She was still hugging me. They took her away and said, "You have to let her rest in peace," her mother recalled sadly. After that, Mary Jane and her husband were alarmingly locked in another room, separated from their little girl. This made them suspect that something was very wrong, and they demanded to see their daughter again immediately and speak to her doctor. Finally, after several minutes of heated discussions with the sick women, the couple managed to get out of the room, but the medical staff would not let them into the room where their daughter was. Shortly thereafter, the moment would come when the Mendozas' life would stop and their heart would break into 1,000 pieces. The doctor in charge of their daughter appeared and, with great regret, informed them that Camilla had died from severe dehydration. Camilla's state of dehydration was too severe. Not even intravenous treatment was able to restore her, and we lost her. We deeply regret what happened, but if we could have done more, we would have done it. I sympathize with you. God bless you, the doctor said with regret. It was evident that he felt very responsible for what had happened. The family organized a funeral for the next day so that friends and family could mourn the tragic loss of the girl. However, during the wake, something happened that would turn the tide. Camilla's mother saw the glass of the coffin fogging up. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but as she continued to look, she became sure that what she was seeing was real. "Look, the glass is fogging up! The girl's breathing, my child's breathing! Everybody look at her!" shouted Mrs. Mendoza in tears, trying to get the others to see what she was seeing. But no one was willing to believe her. While her family tried to convince her she was delirious and wouldn't let her open the coffin, her paternal grandmother, a woman in her 80s, wanted to take a closer look at the girl to say goodbye. And upon taking a closer look, the old woman saw that Camilla was moving her eyes, and upon checking, she even discovered she had a pulse. "She's alive, she's still breathing! Get her out of there right now!" shouted the lady in hysterics. The whole family could see that what the mother and the old woman had seen was true. They all thought that there was still hope that little Camilla could survive, and no wonder, because, let's see, how many dead people are breathing? But what happened a few hours later would rob them again of their illusion. After taking her out of the coffin and calling emergency services, the emergency services rushed her to the hospital in Salinas once again, where doctors tried everything they could to revive her. But they were unsuccessful, and instead of announcing Camilla's return to life, the doctors diagnosed the girl with severe cerebral edema, which had been the one that finally ended her life. An edema that no doctor was able to diagnose in time and that claimed the life of a girl only 3 years old. That's where they really finished off my baby. We were devastated because my little girl was a very cheerful person. She got along with everyone. She didn't single anyone out. We have many people in our town who support us because she was very loved, explained Mrs. Mendoza, devastated, days later in an interview to the local newspaper that covered the news of the 2 deaths of Camilla. Camilla was due to start kindergarten the week she died. There was no consolation for the family. They were devastated and at the same time filled with rage for the injustice that had been done to their little girl. The first death certificate listed dehydration as the cause of death, while the second listed dehydration along with cerebral edema and metabolic insufficiency. It was a medical failure that ended Camilla Roxana's life, not the disease itself. The girl suffered from a treatable cerebral edema at first, but when the relevant medical treatment wasn't carried out, it became lethal and irredeemable. "What I really want is for justice to be done. I don't hold a grudge against the doctors who went to extreme measures," stated her grieving mother. "I only ask that they change the doctors, nurses, and managers so it doesn't happen again," finished Mary Jane Mendoza, broken with grief. Currently, the Attorney General of the state of San Luis Potosi, Jose Luis Ruiz, is investigating the case and is also performing an autopsy on Camilla in order to demonstrate the true cause of her death and prove that the doctor's malpractice ended her life. Her parents are devastated but will not stop fighting and demanding justice from the state. Hopefully, the Mendoza family will get the justice they deserve and the answers they seek. No family deserves to go through suffering as great as theirs, let alone the mistake of people whose job it is to care for others and watch over their lives. What a horrible tragedy. Rest in peace, little Camille. Did you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.